KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi has denied reports that two men who've been arrested in Eswatini are being linked to the murder of rapper Keenan aka Forbes and his friend TIBZ Mutswane. Forbes and Mutswane were gunned down outside a restaurant in a popular Durban nightlife area on Florida Road last year.
On the 23rd of February 2024, news broke out from Swaziland on the arrest of two individuals believed to be linked to the murder of Keenan Forbes and his associate TIBZ. At the time, the South African police denied these claims from the Swazi police, but they later confirmed the news to be true. This is the story of the hit that took out one of the most famous personalities in South African showbiz. This is the story of AKA and TIBZ. AKA's murder shocked the nation of South Africa on February 10, 2023. No one expected the man to die in such fashion in a city he was celebrated. From the very onset, the hit looked well planned and to have been coordinated by professional killers. For a while, the hunt for the men who ended the superstar's life looked lost, but the South African police had curated a genius plan behind the spotlight. When the killers pulled the trigger on February 10, 2023, the camera caught a glimpse of the men escaping into the night, and for a while it seemed as though they would get away with it. But they made several mistakes on that day that led to their capture. Mistake which the South African police capitalized on. As soon as AKA landed at the airport in Durban, he had a tail on him unbeknown to anyone in his entourage.
The spotter initially followed Mr. Forbes from the airport on arrival, all the way to the hotel, as well as to the restaurant where the incident happened. And this person was also responsible for gathering resources together, the whole team together, as well as the rewards that came thereafter when the people have done their job, the payments that was done.
His security personnel reported that his normal routines were mysteriously changed on the day, as they did not follow the usual protocols when traveling with the superstar.
50% of our work is the manner in which you move. It's your planning, it's how you pre-plan, and how you schedule your timing and your placing of yourself as a person. In my absence, protocol was breached. Keenan was called and invited to go to Florida Road Wish, which he accepted and he went. Had I been there, that protocol would have not been breached, simply because that call would have came through the road manager.
When the artist was picked up at King Shaka International Airport, a gray BMW followed the entourage to the Hilton Hotel in Durban. Harvey Gwabini is alleged to have been inside this vehicle according to cell phone records. This character will turn out to be of great importance later in the story. Once they arrived at the hotel, the BMW left the scene, possibly after confirming the location where AKA was staying. Later that day, a gray VW Polo was seen around the hotel, and this vehicle is believed to have been a spotter vehicle to monitor AKA's movements. This car is alleged to have been hired for this particular job by the same man who was inside the BMW earlier. Two men, Sayabonga and Lindokush, were identified around the Hilton Hotel through cell phone records right as AKA settled in the residence. At around 5 p.m., AKA and his entourage were transported from the hotel to Wish Restaurant. When he arrived at the restaurant, he was met by the owner, who invited him for a haircut at his salon inside the restaurant.
He called me earlier in the day and said, "Benny, I know you've got a new spot. Let's go check it out. I want to go cut my hair at your place. I keep hearing about the food, about the fish at your place. I want to come eat at your place."
Forbes joined the owner for a meal in the restaurant after the haircut. He was then joined by his former manager, TIBZ. At this time, a spotter was already positioned inside the restaurant watching AKA and his entourage.
We have two spotters that were one of the spotters was inside the restaurant observing and watching Mr. Forbes and his friends.
That's when the killers made their first crucial mistake. To disguise his actions, the spotter decided to buy a meal inside the restaurant. He then used a standard bank credit card to pay for the meal. This helped to identify him as Lindo. The VW Polo used for spotting was also identified around the Wish Restaurant. Video footage spotted Lindo exiting the VW Polo and entering the restaurant. Another car was also spotted by cameras at the Hilton Hotel and later at the restaurant. This was the Mercedes-Benz C200, which would later play a prominent role during the assassin's escape after the murder. The Mercedes-Benz arrived near the restaurant and was positioned about 100 meters from the entrance. At around 10 p.m., AKA and his entourage decided to leave the restaurant, and before he jumped inside the car which was to transport him, he decided to embrace his former manager and friend TIBZ. At that moment, a suspect is seen crossing the road before he approached the two from behind and fired at point blank. This suspect was later identified as Sayabanga. The second suspect, who is alleged to be Lindo, positioned himself near the cars and fired shots in the direction of the two victims. AKA immediately fell to the ground and TIBZ ran a few meters before collapsing to the ground. Both suspects were then seen crossing the Florida Road towards the direction of the white Mercedes-Benz before fleeing the scene. The men drove the car off the scene before abandoning it near Cato Crest Informal Settlement. The suspected then tried to set the car on fire.
The first vehicle, which is a Mercedes-Benz, was recovered on the 6th of March last year.
They then made their second crucial mistake after abandoning the vehicle. One of the suspects decided to buy airtime from a tuck shop near the area where they had abandoned the vehicle. This helped the police to identify the person as Unkobo. Cellular phone records obtained from the man's phone showed how he had communicated with the other suspects on the night of the murder. The suspect's place of residence during the time of the murder was also identified, as they were residing in Capella Flats in Malusi. The killing of a public figure in such fashion angered the public as they demanded swift justice. This meant that the South African police were now under pressure to deliver. The men in the force had a master plan led by the top detective Vela. This was overseen by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner and the Minister of Police in the country. The strategy was to identify and locate the suspects before arresting them on other charges not related to the AKA case. This was a genius plan, as it meant that the other persons targeted in the case could not be triggered and disappear before the police could catch up.
The strategy that we employed was that after identifying these 6, we're going to look for parallel cases that they are involved in. And we're going to arrest them on those cases and keep them in custody. But don't charge them on the case that we're investigating, the main case 85 of February last year, which happened in Florida. So the reason for that is because we wanted to make sure that we get almost all the suspects, especially the organizer of the hit. So after identifying everyone else, and we could realize that of the 6 suspects, at least 4 of them, we have parallel cases that we can link them with. So we started pursuing those parallel cases.
The first arrest was made in April 2023, 2 months after the murder. The man was arrested in Cape Town at Erica Square in Belhar along with 3 other men. The man was linked to a string of taxi killings in KwaZulu-Natal, and the police initially charged him on these cases. This suspect was said to be the organizer of vehicles and firearms used in the hit. On October 24, 2023, the second arrest was made. This suspect was one of the alleged spotters. The man was linked to another unrelated murder in the Berea area. This was the charge he was initially charged on. On December 14, 2023, the third suspect was caught. This was one of the alleged shooters on that fateful day in Durban. He was also arrested on an unrelated murder case. Then came the arrest which blew the news to the public. The arrest of the 2 brothers in Swaziland on February 24, 2024. These were the alleged second shooter and the second spotter. They had been living in a rented house in Swaziland for months. The SAPS collaborated with the Swazi police and Interpol to arrest the men before their extradition to South Africa. These arrests almost compromised the case as the information got leaked to the Swaziland media. This triggered one of the suspects, who was being investigated by the South African police in KwaZulu-Natal. The man went on the run after getting wind of the arrest in Swaziland.
On Monday, we had on our possession warrant of arrest of the last 2. Unfortunately, the news broke out. So when the news broke out, the very last suspect we're looking for went on a run, because the news were out, and they realized that the people that they thought were hiding that side, they're now running away, that they've been arrested. So they ought to run. So the team worked 24/7, 24 hours looking for them, and that was from Monday until early hours of this morning, when the lawyers came to us and they said, okay, they're going to hand themselves over, because we were hunting them and we had warrant of arrest.
This man was said to be the coordinator of the whole operation, the one who had followed AKA inside the BMW from the airport. He was the one who had allegedly paid for the whole process. The SAPS knew they had to act fast to catch the said mastermind. The man later contacted the police through his lawyers and handed himself over to the South African police. The 6 men were now in police custody, and later a 7th suspect was arrested. The whole picture was now laid bare, with every role played by each suspect on the day now clear. But this was far from over. The financial aspect of the hit and the motive did not add up to what was presented. It is rumored that the coordinator received 800,000 rand, which was to be shared among the suspects. Each of the suspects was paid around 130,000 rand. The question was then, what was the motive for someone to pay almost R1 million for the death of AKA? This led to the public to believe a bigger mastermind to be still at large.
And we are all interested really to know, because it's very clear. It was not just somebody that woke up in the morning and got angry. You can see the build up and all that, coordinating. The money, yeah, they got money. All of them, they were paid.
The story of the hit that took out one of the biggest personalities in South Africa continues with new revelations each day. The suspected men are scheduled for court appearances as the case begins. How it ends, nobody truly knows.
I feel I wanted to experience that. It's part of my closure, is to be here, to get closer to the truth, to find out who did it. And that's a starting point. So I feel, I can't say I feel good, but I feel that, you know, it started putting the faces to what's happened to Kenan and to TIBZ.